Hey everyone, today we're going to take a look at the Great Heartland Hauling Company from Dice Hate Me Games. Now this is essentially a pick up and deliver game where players take control of truckers who are trying to pick up goods like cattle and produce and then drop them off in another city or state and try to get money for them. First player to get to a certain amount of money triggers the end game, and then whoever has the most money at the end of that is the winner. So, very small game that is trying to emulate the feeling of a larger Euro game. Does it succeed? Let's go ahead and do an overview, then we'll come back and I'll tell you what I think. Okay, I'm just going to give you a brief run-through of the Great Heartland Hauling Company. This is a competitive game for 2 to 4 players, although you can use a small expansion to bring the game up to a 5-player cap, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But regardless, the game is about you being a trucker and trying to pick up goods and drop them off at another location in order to earn money, so it's a pick up and deliver game. Each player is going to get one of these little truck meeples of the appropriate color and also a couple of scoring cards. You'll get a little scoring cube that starts off at the $5 mark. That's where everyone starts off at. Each player is also going to get 5 cards from the main deck. This deck is made up of freight bills of all the different types of goods in the game, like corn and cattle. And it's also fuel cards. Let me show you an example of that. Fuel cards like this, it comes in 1s, 2s, and 3s. So that makes up the main deck. Each player gets 5 cards from that deck and one of these little reference cards, and then the game is going to begin. Now, you'll also set up this map, and you can set up the map in a variety of different ways that the rule book will show you, but and also here on the back of the reference card. But this is the standard setup for 4 players. So with less players, you'll use less cards, obviously. You're also going to, these all represent like different places where you would drop off goods like Fort Lee and Mount Berry, things like that. You'll also populate each of these cards with 5 goods of their native good type. Each of these cards has 1 good that is their native type, so you'll put 5 of those goods out there. And then at the bottom of the card, it tells you how much money you're going to get for those goods if you choose to drop them off. And I'll explain how you do all of that in a moment. So, when you're ready to begin, one player will be the start player, then you're going to proceed. The first thing you do on your turn is you must move. When you move, you either have to discard fuel cards up to 3 worth of fuel in order to move up to 3 spaces. And you must move as many fuel as you spend. So if you spend 3 fuel, you must move 3 fuel. If you don't have fuel cards or you don't want to use the fuel cards that you have, you can choose to spend money instead. And remember that money is victory points in this game. You'll play to a differing amount based on the number of players, but that's how you're essentially going to win the game. So if you're spending money, you're spending victory points to move, but you may have to do that because you have to move if you have the capability of doing so. Again, you can only spend up to $3 to move up to 3 spaces, and then you'll move your truck that many spots. Now, you can move through other players' truck meeples, but you can't stop on the same space. So this might actually prevent you from moving on some certain turns. When you get to your final destination, you take an action, which is either going to be loading up your truck with goods, unloading goods that you've already picked up, or spending $1 to discard cards from your hands to redraw if you can't do one of those other actions. If you're picking up goods, you'll take cards from your hands that are the freight bills that match any of the goods that are on that card. Discard as many of those cards as you want. Then let's say I had 4 of the green P cards or the produce cards. Then I would be able to discard those and I would load up my truck. There are 8 spaces that your truck can carry goods on. And each of the cards out here can only have up to 8 cubes at any given time. Once you've chosen to take the goods, then you're going to move on to the next step. If you already have goods that you want to sell, and you're always going to try to sell them at a place that gives you the most money for them, like let's say I have these greens and I managed to make it all the way over here, or actually just to here, where they sell for $3. Then the same thing. I discard as many of the green cards as I want for the produce that I have already. And I'll put those cubes back here in the spot, making sure to remember that you can only have a total of 8 cubes on a card, and then I get that much money. So if I discarded 3 cubes where it's worth 3, then I'm going to get $9, and I'll move my cube up appropriately. The other option that you have, if you don't want to do the other 2 things, or you simply can't, is to spend $1 to discard your hand and draw back up to 5. And that's actually what the last phase of the game is. If you take one of the other actions, then you get to draw cards to fill your hand back up to 5 anyways. When you draw cards, you can either draw them from the top of the deck or take them from the available cards, the 3 cards that are already laid out there. And when you draw a card from that the face-up cards, it will immediately be replaced. So you have some different options of how you draw. And the game is going to proceed like that. You're going to keep moving around, picking up goods, dropping off goods, getting money. Like I said, depending on the number of players, it's either $30, $40, or $50 will trigger the end of the round. Each player is going to get another turn, and then whoever has the most money is going to be the winner. There are a couple of extra little expansions, though, like I mentioned earlier, that you might want to use for the game. One of them is simply the Badlands expansion, and here's a little rules card for that, which is going to add another player to the game, the pinkish purple player, with all the components that you need, the cards and the cube and such, and also 2 extra cards that you're going to place on the board. Depending on the layout of the map, you'll place them like at opposite ends of the board. And those Badlands cards don't have a native good, so you will not populate them with goods at the beginning, but you can still sell goods there just like you would other cards. And in fact, each of these has 3 different goods that you can sell. So like for instance, Serenity here can handle pigs, corn, and produce. Markham can handle cattle, produce, and corn. And they sell for really good prices too. So you can easily go there, drop off goods, sell, and then other players can come and pick up the goods that have been dropped there by other players. That's the Badlands expansion. The other expansion that I believe comes right in the box is the Inspansion expansion. And what this is, you'll have these stack of cards which represent both locations and upgrades. You'll randomly place these around the board at the start of the game. It'll vary depending on the number of players. And then these are spots that the truckers can go to, and they can spend the money indicated on the card in order to get a permanent upgrade to their abilities, which are all going to be explained on the other information card that comes here. So you'll go there, spend the money if you like, and then when next time that you move away, you'll actually take that card off the board and put it in front of you, indicating that you and only you have that upgrade. So for instance, the tune-up card says that you can add +1 to a fuel card per turn for free. The oil change says that before entering the refuel phase, you may discard a card. The smartphone increases your hand size to 6, and so on. So all of these can be very, very powerful, but you do have to spend money, which, like I said, is victory points. So it's just an extra little wrinkle that you can throw in there. And that's the great Heartland Hauling Company. Regardless of whether you play with the expansions or not, it's pick up and deliver, going around, trying to get goods, trying to sell them, trying to be the best trucker that you can be. Now, anyone who knows me will tell you that I am really not a fan of cube pushing games. Really not my style. But I will say that the great Heartland Hauling Company definitely surprised me. It's a very charming little game, very easy to teach, very fast, but with a lot of depth to it and a lot of decision making that I really enjoy, and I think it's definitely one that people should check out. The things I really like about it, like I already said, I mean, the setup is just so easy, but there's a lot of variety to it potentially. The game comes with different map setups so that when you're setting up the cards and all the different lanes and how your trucks can move around the distribution center, it's very simple to do some, very varied and kind of crazy different designs of the map, which gives the game more replayability. The game is very simple to teach. I definitely throw this into the gateway category for games, and that's a great thing because I don't have a lot of games like that. I mean, I have some simple games that but still, I would never even call them gateway games because I want a game that is not just simple, but that has some added depth and strategy so you can work your way up to more complex games. And I think that the great Heartland Hauling Company, despite its very long name, as I say it over and over, definitely fits the bill in that regard. Component-wise, I do like the truck meeples a lot. I really do. Because of its size and because it's not a really grandiose game, it's not like the components are that great, but they do use good card quality. I do like the meeples, and it succeeds there. The box is okay. It's kind of awkward, but you have to put everything in the right way or it doesn't close right, but that's kind of nitpicky, not a huge deal. I think that there is something of a potential for a runaway leader problem in this, but I think that's kind of the same as any pick up and deliver game, and I think that as you play the game more with the same groups of people, that gap can close as you figure out what the best thing and the best decisions to make are. Like, there's some different ways to victory. You just try to pick up goods as quickly as possible, drop them off wherever, and get your money escalating at a very quick rate. Do you try to save up a lot of a particular type of cargo and then take it to a spot on the board that gives you a very high ROI, return on investment for that? Or, I've been in marketing too long. Or do you, those are but there's some important decisions to make there, but a lot of your decisions are sort of dictated by the cards. That's a little bit of randomness that's in this game, is that, sort of Ticket to Ride style, you start off with cards and you can draw cards either from the deck or from the cards that are laid out in front of you, and you don't always have what you need, so you have to sort of make the best of what you have and do something. And that's the kind of randomness that I like, where you still always have something you can do. You just might be stalled a bit, but the same thing's happening to the other players, so you're not going to get screwed too much in that regard. It can be frustrating when you don't have enough fuel and you can't move. That can be a crappy part, where you just don't get the fuel cards that you need, and you have to start sacrificing money just to move. And sometimes it leads to some less than optimal decision making. But again, if you've played the game enough, I think that you can sort of mitigate that by knowing, like, this is where I should go. If I go over here, it's risky because everyone else is clustering over in this area and I can't be in the same space with them, which limits my movement options. Things like that. You know, you just have to make those kind of decisions. Now, I have played the game with 3 players, and I played the game with actually 5 players because I had a little expansion, the Badlands expansion, which adds a 5th player piece, as I mentioned in my overview, and also adds the Badlands cards at the other ends of the board. The game doesn't really slow down that much with 5 players. Normally, I wouldn't play a lot of games with the maximum player count if I can avoid it, especially Euro-style games. But this one's fine. The game is not that long in either case. I have not played with the other small expansion that comes in the game, which offers the different kind of tech cards and upgrades that you can purchase for your truck. I don't think that would add that much to the game, although I will try it. I think the game is good as it is, so I can kind of take or leave that. But I don't think this is a game that really needs a lot of different expansions. I think it's really good on its own. Like I said, great gateway game, very surprising, very charming. I never imagined I'd ever enjoy a game about truck driving, but there you have it, and it actually makes me eager to try out other Dice Hate Me games. So, my name is Nick, this has been Board Game Brawl, and I'm reminding you to get out there and game every day in every way. Take care.